Today, we're going to tell the story of Christmas Truce. It was a true story in 1914, and it was one of the most remarkable incidents of World War I. And fortunately, we have Caitlin filling in for Tungman because he had to go to Australia. We are lucky that we have someone to fill his part in, so we hope you enjoy this.
Christmas Day, 1914. Dear Mother,
my darling Meg, my good friend Charles,
My dear sister Janet.
it is 2 in the morning and most of our men are asleep in their dugouts.
yet I could not sleep myself before writing to you of the wonderful events of Christmas Eve. In truth, what happens seems almost like a fairy tale, and if I hadn't been through it myself, I would scarce to believe it.
Just imagine, while you and your family sang carols before the fire in London, I did the same with enemy soldiers in the battlefield with friends.
As I wrote before, there has been little serious fighting of late. The first battles of the war left so many dead that both sides have held back until replacements could come from home. So we have mostly stayed in our trenches and waited.
But what a terrible waiting it has been, knowing that any moment an artillery shell might land and explode beside us, knowing killing or maiming several men, and in daylight not daring to lift our heads above the ground for fear of a sniper's bullet. And the rain, it has fallen almost daily. Of course it collects right in our trenches where we must bail it out with pots and pans. And the rain has come mud, and a good foot or more deep.
It splatters and cakes everything, and constantly sucks at our boots. One new recruit got his feet stuck in it, and then his hands too when he tried to get out. Just like the American story told.
Through all this, we couldn't help feeling curious about the German soldiers across the way. After all, they faced the same dangers we did, and slogged about the same muck.
What's more, the first trench was only 50 yards from ours. Between us lay no man's land, bordered on both sides by barbed wire. Yet they were close enough we sometimes heard their voices. Of course we hated them whenever they killed our friends, but other times we joked about them and almost felt like we had something in common.
And now it feels so that they felt the same.
Just yesterday morning, Christmas Eve day, we had our first good freeze. Cold as we were, we welcomed it, because at least the mud froze softly.
Everything was white tinged with frost, while a bright sun shone over all. Perfect Christmas weather. During the day, there was little shelling or fire from either side, and as darkness fell on our Christmas Eve, the shooting stopped entirely.
Our first complete silence in months. We hoped it might promise a peaceful holiday, but we didn't count on it. We had been told that the Germans may attack at any time and try and catch us off guard.
I went to the dugouts to rest, and lying on my cot, I must have drifted asleep. At once, my friend was shaking me awake, saying,
"Come see! Look what the Germans are doing!"
I grabbed my rifle and stumbled out into the field. I grabbed my rifle and stumbled out into the field and stuck my head cautiously above the sandbags.
This carl may not yet be familiar to us, and I never hope to see a stranger and more lovely sight. Clusters of tiny lights were shining all along the German line, left and right as far as the eye could see. "What is it?" I asked in bewilderment as someone answered, "Christmas trees."
And so it was. The Germans had placed Christmas trees in front of their trenches, lit by candle or lantern, like beacons of goodwill.
And then we heard their voices raised in a song, singing, "Silent Night, Heilige Nacht."
This carol may not yet be familiar to us in Britain, but one soldier knew it and translated it. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round your virgin mother.
and we all joined in, singing, "The first Noel, the angels did say, was a certain poor shepherds and fields they lay, in fields were they keeping their sheep, on the cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel."
In truth, we sounded not nearly as good as the Germans, with their fine harmonies, but they responded with enthusiastic applause of their own, and began another song. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum.
Then we replied singing,
Come, ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come, ye faithful to Bethlehem.
But this time they joined in singing the same words in Latin, singing Adis Feriens.
One of them called, "Send off your Tata." British and German harmonizing over no man's land. I would have thought nothing could be more amazing, but then to what came next?
English, come over, we heard one of them shout. You no shoot, we no shoot.
There in the trenches, we looked at each other in bewilderment. Then one of us shouted jokingly, "You, come over here!"
To our astonishment, we saw two figures rising from the trench, climbing over their barbed wire and advance unprotected across no man's land.
"Send officer to talk," one of them called.
I saw one of our men lift in his rifle and to the ready, and no doubt the others did the same. But our captain yelled out, "Hold your fire!" Then he climbed out and went to meet the Germans halfway.
We heard them talking, and a few minutes later, the captain came back with a cigar in his mouth. "We've agreed there will be no shooting before midnight tomorrow," he announced. "But sentries are to remain on duty, and the rest of you stay alert."
Across the way, we could make out groups of 2 or 3 men starting out of the trenches and coming toward us.
Then some of us were climbing up too, and in minutes more, there we were in no man's land, over 100 soldiers and officers of each side, shaking hands with others, and that had just been trying to kill us earlier.
Before long, a bonfire was built, and around it we mingled British khaki and German gray. I must say, the Germans were better dressed, with fresh uniforms for the holiday.
Only a couple of our men knew German, but more of the Germans knew English. I asked one of them why that was. "Because many have worked in England," he said. "Before all this, I was a waiter at the Hotel Cecil. Perhaps I waited on your table." "Perhaps you did," I said, laughing.
One German told me he had a girlfriend in London and that the war had interrupted their plans for marriage. I told him, "Don't worry, we'll have you be by Easter. Then you'll come back and marry the girl." He laughed. Then he asked if I'd send her a postcard he'd give me later, and I promised I would.
Another German had been a porter at Victoria Station. He showed me a picture back on his family in München. His elder sister was so lovely. I said I should like to meet her someday. He beamed, and he said that he would like that very much. He gave me his family's address.
Even those who could not converse could still exchange gifts. Our cigarettes for their cigars, our tea for their coffee, our corned beef for their sausage. Bagged buttons from uniforms changed owners, and one of our lads walked off with the infamous spiked helmet.
to show when I get home.
Newspapers too changed hands, and the Germans howled with laughter at ours. They assured us that France was finished and Russia nearly beat too.
We told them that that was nonsense. Then one of them said, "We'll believe your newspaper if you will believe ours."
Clearly, they are lied to, yet after meeting these men, I wonder how truthful our newspapers are. After our newspapers have been.
These are not the savage barbarians have read so much about. They are men with homes and families, hopes and fears, principles and, yes, love of country.
In other words, men like ourselves.
Why would we love to believe otherwise?
As it grew late, a few more songs were traded around the fire, and then all joined in for "I Am Not Lying to You," a loud, lang song.
When we parted with promises to meet again tomorrow, and even some talk of a football match.
I was just starting back to the back of the trenches when an older German clutched my arm. "My God," he said, "why can't we all have peace and go home?" I told him gently, you must ask your emperor." They looked at me searchingly. "Perhaps, my friend, we should also ask our hearts."
And so, dear mother,
Dear wife,
Dear friend,
Dear sister,
tell me, has there ever been such a Christmas Eve in all history?
would not all war end at once? And what does it all mean, this impossible befriending of enemies?
for the fighting here, of course it means regrettably little. Decent fellows those soldiers may be, but the follow orders, we do the same.
Besides, we are here to stop the army and send it home, and could never reshirk the debt to you.
Still, one cannot help imagine what would happen if the spirit shown on here were caught by the nations of the world.
Of course, disputes must always arise.
But what if our leaders were to offer well wishes in place of wearings?
Songs instead of slurs.
Presents in places of reprisals.
Would not all war end at once?
All nations say they want peace.
Yet on this Christmas morning, I wonder if we want quite enough.
Yours truly,
Yours always,
Yours sincerely.
With all my love,
John.